Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. So obviously the Democrats have identified their issue of choice here. They've been screaming at the top of their lungs about so-called Republican corruption and Texas redistricting. We're seeing it all, of course, the typical Democrat behavior as expected, a full-blown tantrum, pounding the table, fleeing the state, and of course the constant press conferences and media appearances where they attempt to make the argument, this is the death of democracy. But of course, as per usual, it's already started backfiring on the Democrats for the same reason as it always does, dishonesty and hypocrisy. The second you hold up the mirror to these clowns, well, right then and there, that very second, it all frickin' falls apart. The entire charade collapses, and that's exactly what's happening here, as top Democrat J.B. Pritzker takes to NBC News, probably hoping for a softball, where Kristen Welker would just platform all of his democracy nonsense. But instead, well, it didn't exactly go that way, no. It went the way of backfire, as expected. These Dems are getting absolutely exposed and embarrassed. I gotta show you guys this brutal NBC News moment. I mean, even the left's friendly media outlets are catching them with their frickin' pants down. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright friends, so enter J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois. This is the guy the Democrats tell you Donald Trump is so intimidated by, so scared of. In comes J.B. Pritzker to lay down the law. And well, not exactly.
Every major group that grades the fairness of congressional maps gives your state an F. Common Cause, a nonpartisan government watchdog, even says your map, and I'm going to quote, represents a nearly perfect model for everything that can go wrong with redistricting. And I guess the question is, you talk about preserving democracy. How do you preserve democracy if you're using the same tactics that you've criticized Texas Republicans for?
What they're talking about is a distraction. The reality is that the violation of people's voting rights is what Texas is attempting to do. That's what's wrong with their efforts right now, and the fact that the president of the United States knows it and nevertheless is asking them to do it. That is what's wrong with what we're seeing right now. Democracy is at stake.
She pulls up the Illinois congressional map and then even points out that his state got an F grade for fairness in redistricting. I mean, total checkmate, no rebuttal, no spin from there. No, just caught dead to rights. And obviously, everybody can see it. Illinois' map is one of the most absurdly carved, obviously partisan pieces of political engineering in the country. Just look at the map right here on screen. These districts are wild and weirdly shaped, and clearly they're drawn for one purpose: to lock Republicans out of representation. And that's another point that Kristen Welker brought up, that this is a state that roughly 40% of voters lean Republican, and yet they get almost no congressional representation. And yet these clowns are out here lecturing Texas? Please. The arguments, the points just aren't holding up to the most basic, the most lightest of scrutiny. And speaking of brain-dead arguments, speaking of paradoxical nonsense, in comes another Democrat heavy hitter. Let's bring Eric Holder on stage, the guy who used to run the DOJ. He's here to convince us, or rather gaslight us, with possibly one of the most self-contradictory arguments you've ever heard.
Let me ask you, how can gerrymandering both be a threat to democracy and also the way to save it?
Well, there's no question that gerrymandering is a threat to our democracy. It allows politicians to pick their voters as opposed to citizens choosing their representatives. But we are now in a situation where we find ourselves where authoritarian moves are being made by the White House through various states, Texas most prominent among them. And there has to be a response to that. What I've said is that we have to protect our democracy now if we ultimately want to be able to save it. And so taking the reasonable steps that have been proposed in California, I think it makes a great deal of sense in this moment, a temporary way in which to respond to that which is happening in Texas, with the thought that after this crisis has passed, we get back to the fight against gerrymandering by anybody.
On one hand, he claims the Texas redistricting is a threat to democracy, but then immediately goes on to say that Democrats need to gerrymander, specifically in California, to, quote, save democracy. And this is obviously a bad argument because it's inconsistent, it's hypocritical, it's paradoxical, but probably most glaringly, it's backwards. This whole idea that Democrats now need to counter in order to undo corruption from the other side, well, if anything, that's what Texas Republicans are doing by redrawing their maps, because guess what? Ding, ding, ding. Democrats have been gaming the system for years. One of the biggest scams they've got going is the illegal immigrant census loophole. When it comes to counting people on the census, the Constitution says persons are counting, and so Democrats have obviously taken that and milked it to the greatest degree that you could imagine. Democrats, especially in California, are packing their states with illegal migrants. They're harboring illegal migrants, ensuring that those people are then included in the census, which then grants them extra congressional seats. In other words, they're stealing representation from states that actually follow immigration law. And so if anything, Texas now redrawing its map isn't an attack on democracy. If anything, it's a correction. It's called rebalancing the scales. Democrats destroy democracy and Republicans are literally redistricting to save it. The exact opposite of what Eric Holder is suggesting. And that's just the illegal migrant issue. That's before you even mention the fact that Democrats gerrymander their own states shamelessly, as clearly proven in the initial video. All the big Democrat states are doing it. They're all benefiting from skewed and inflated census counts. And so when Democrats are out here crying about Texas, it's not a fight or a call for fairness. No, they're fighting to protect their own crooked advantage. And what's so stupid about this whole thing is that the same Texas Democrats, these anti-corruption Democrats that are fighting Donald Trump's fascistic power grab in Texas, well, they fled to Chicago of all places to live it up in luxury hotels owned by their billionaire Nepo baby, J.B. Pritzker. They chose possibly the most corruptly gerrymandered state in America to make the argument that Texas cannot gerrymander for its own partisan edge. I mean, you cannot write comedy this good. Just completely freaking idiotic. Obviously grounds for backfiring, grounds for getting completely exposed as the biggest loser hypocrites in the game. And I think people have already pretty much caught on, at least people who are thinking critically. This is why nobody takes Democrat outrage seriously on any issue, let alone Texas redistricting. I think people have finally realized that they're the last people on earth qualified to lecture anyone on issues of fairness or constitutionality or democracy, and especially freedom. They're the biggest hypocrites, the biggest cheaters, the biggest scoundrels in the game. And that's why this stuff never works. It always backfires. And that's frankly why it's so easy to predict this stuff, because it's not our first rodeo. We've seen the Democrats engage in this exact type of rank hypocrisy on nearly every single issue, and especially with their little weekly or monthly psyops, the next point of outrage that the outrage machine moves on to. It's kind of easy to predict backfire when it backfires 99.9% of the damn time. The Democrats have nothing to stand on, yet here they are doing frickin' jumping jacks, and they're confused why they're sinking deeper and deeper and deeper into the mud. How utterly pathetic. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.